Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome to our beautiful panel. Welcome, come on in, Mo, Jeremy, Dawn, Julie, Pam, Misha, Mika, Annette. Turn your cameras on if you want us to see, but you don't have to. Ainsley, Naomi, Louise, Jackie, Judy, Valerie, come on in, come on in, come on in. We've got a great group tonight. Great, great group. Come on in. Welcome, 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 welcome. I'll give you a few more minutes for everybody to come in. My name is Jeff Howard, and I am standing in for Sarah Cooperman, who is she had some surgery done. She had her nose, I believe, broken or re-broken or something, so she's out of pocket for a couple of weeks. So I'm standing in for her, which is a tall order if you know Sarah. So I feel very honored, and I feel honored to be amongst these beautiful women that are in front of me. Please don't take that the wrong way. There's nothing wrong with being beautiful. All right, welcome in, guys, welcome in. If you guys like to turn your cameras on, I'd love to see what you guys look like. Doesn't matter if your house is a mess. I know that Trisha took a shower for you guys today. I think Stephanie did. Abby, did you take a shower? Thumbs up or down?
Just from the neck down.
From the neck down, that sounds about right.
Same. Yeah, same.
Great. Well, we've got about 160 people signed up for this, and 45 are in right now, and they're going to trickle on in along the way. But what I care about mostly is when you look at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see, of course, where it says mute. You guys are all muted. You have your stop video. I'd love for you to turn it on, but apparently that's not going to happen tonight. We have security, and that's in case Abby gets out of control. We have our participants next to that. But what I care about is the chat button. I want everybody to click on that chat button, and if it opens up, let's drag it over to the side. And I'd love for you all to type in where you're from, where you're from. Type in where you're from, everybody. We got Calgary, we got Boca Raton, Stanton, Connecticut, Oregon, South Florida near Abby, we got Bloomfield, Connecticut, Michigan, Dallas, Arkansas, Wisconsin, Marietta, Georgia. That is awesome. Wow, you guys are from all over. London, Ontario, Cayman Islands, Indiana. I'm from Louisville, New Jersey. All right, so before we keep going, I want you to look in the side and you see the reactions button, guys. If you open the reactions button, I want you to give me a thumbs up if you teach bar now. So if you open it up, just give me a thumbs up so I can see how many of y'all teach bar presently. Good, good, good. So we've got a few that are teaching bar, and then some of you maybe that are just interested in it, want to learn a little bit more about it, which is exciting as well. Before we start, I'm going to introduce our beautiful panel because we've got a great night ahead of us. We've got a lot of great things to discuss. First is going to be our Abby Apple. Abby, she is the owner and CEO of Abby Bit Consulting, Apple Programming Solutions, and the program director of Fit Space Studios. She's also the creator of SCW's Pilates and bar certification. And I've actually known Abby. Abby and I kind of broke our teeth together in the fitness industry. We were two of the last Reebok master trainers that were ever inducted into Reebok. And we both sat at a table with these bigwigs that we knew from hearsay and in teaching with them. And we were both like, what are we doing here? And we've known each other a long time, Abby, a long time. Next, we've got our beautiful Trisha Murphy Madden. We love Trisha. She began teaching in 1991 and never looked back. She has taught dance and fitness workshops worldwide and is one of the industry's top presenter. She is also co-founder of Bar Above, co-founder of Homeroom, and she's also Savier's national trainer, and she does so much with them. And I've known Trisha for a very long time as well. We knew each other when she was doing striptease. Remember when striptease was a big trend? Trisha was our striptease girl. Do you remember that, Ab?
I do.
And then we have a new friend to us who I'm so excited to meet. Her name is Stephanie Lyons, and she's the president of Bar Intensity, a leader of bar programming and education with 20 years of dance experience as a student and professional dancer. Stephanie uses her expertise to develop and deliver bar programs to students around the globe. And my name is Jeff Howard, and I've been doing fitness for a long time, and I do SCW's Group X certification, their Aqua certification, and also their yoga. And I take bar classes as well because guess what? Men can take bar classes. Before we start, I just kind of want to ask, some of you are confused with what bar is, and I just kind of want the ladies to explain to each of you what they feel bar is, so you feel a bit more well-versed in what we're talking about tonight. Stephanie, what does bar mean to you? What is a bar class?
A bar class to me
What I love and appreciate about a barre class is that it is a full body workout. It is a functional workout. It focuses on length and stretch, but in my opinion, in a sneaky kind of way, not really like a sit in the splits for 10 minutes kind of stretch, but one side is contracting, the other side is lengthening. So we talk about contraction and lengthening all throughout the workout. So it leaves you feeling strong and accomplished, but not like you have to go home and take a nap, like you're ready to go about your day.
Awesome. And Abby, what do you think?
I agree with everything you just said, Stephanie. In addition, I considered a total body workout, muscular endurance workout. So I know we always have these debates on whether or not it's dance. It is not dance, but it does use some dance-based positions, lots of postural movements, lots of alignment. And yes, when people walk out, they should feel stronger and they should feel better about themselves.
That's awesome. And Trisha, what do you think? Tell us.
Well, because they said it so well, what I would say is historically what Barre is it was really a physical therapy program designed by a dancer who had injured themselves. So Lottie Burke injured herself dancing and needed to create a unique way to stay in shape so that she could go back to performing. She was a modern, at the time, modern dancer. And so if you can kind of think about Barre having been created in that mindset, it's almost a physical therapy program because it improves your posture, it's muscular endurance. And so she created this really dynamic, fun, very personality driven class. She was really well known for wearing fishnets and tights and like sexy outfits to teach class. And she loved to really, she was very like tongue in cheek about lots of fun, naughty things. So I think I like the historical look back as well. Things have changed and evolved quite a bit since 1959, but that's where it all started.
So to piggyback on that, what do you think has changed mostly from that beginning concept and what we have today, Abby?
Well, there's a lot more science in how we do muscle conditioning, how we do fitness in general. And so we are able now to apply the science that we that we have, all of that research that's been done on what's the best ways to get fit. So, and not only fit, but just biomechanics and how our bodies work. So we know so much more today, and we're able to apply that to our barre workouts.
And so people confuse sometimes barre with Pilates or yoga even. They put it all in the same category. What do you feel is the biggest difference, Trisha, between those different modalities? Let's say Pilates and barre.
Well, the program, the original program, Lottie Burke created the Lottie Burke method really about a decade or so after Joseph Pilates. So much of her teachings, much of her design was really influenced by Joseph Pilates. Joseph Pilates had great influence on her. So they're not necessarily different. There's actually a significant amount of Pilates. So, we'll talk about this later, but I'd almost say like take Abby's Pilates course and then take her barre course because the Pilates is going to support the barre so well. So Pilates is a piece of the barre puzzle, but it is woven in such a way that you're not necessarily feeling like you're in a Pilates class, but it's definitely based on much of the original Pilates philosophies.
Perfect. Stephanie?
Yeah, and just something to add to that with Pilates, for me, in my fitness education experience, my personal experience, I started with barre and then I went into Pilates, and that's when everything kind of clicked and came together for me. So yes, Trisha, to that point, if you're a barre instructor, having a Pilates course under your belt helps it all click so much. And for me, when creating my course, Barre Intensity, it was take the alignment foundations and principles of Pilates and bring it into your barre workout to make it that much more effective. So that for me, the alignment principles is everything for me with barre.
So and do you feel do you feel that bar is accessible to everybody? Do you feel that a first timer can come in and feel the same workout as somebody that's been doing it for a long time? Abby?
Oh, I mean,
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think first timers, the first time somebody takes bar versus somebody who's been taking it for a long time. I mean, as I said before, it's a muscular endurance workout. So the more you take it, the better you're able to adapt to the movements. And then also the amount of time that we're holding a position and the isometric engagements in the movement. So if somebody's brand new to bar, I mean, they might, honestly, even if they come from even if they feel really strong, because I've had people come in my class who you can see are very fit. I mean, they're very strong, but they've never, and they grab the heavy weights. They go outside, they're like, what are these 3-pound weights? What are these 2-pound weights? Are they crazy? And they grab like 5 or 6, 5 or 7 pounds or 5 or 8 pounds. And I do kind of warn them. I'm like, hey, it's a little bit different than what we do in a sculpt class or in your regular strength conditioning programming. And you might want to grab some lighter weights. And I always joke when they just kind of look at me and they roll their eyes and I know they're really fit. I'm like, game on. Because my whole goal is now to get them put in. But no, I'm kidding, of course. No, but if you have somebody brand new, and even if they're a little bit less fit, most likely they'll have to either modify movements or they might have to, sometimes it's not intentional. They might have to stop a little bit early. I don't mean stop the class, but stop the set, pause and then come back in when they're able to maintain their alignment, or maybe they're not shaking or they don't feel, throbbing in their joints, because that's not what we want in bar. We want their muscles to work, but we don't want throbbing. So there are some differences between people that, are seasoned and people that are new to bar.
So then my other question is, then what would you say is each of you, I'm going to ask each of you this, if you would do an elevator pitch for Pilates, for bar, an elevator pitch, what would you say is the 3 best benefits that you will take away when you take a bar class? Stephanie?
Ooh, 3 best benefits. Okay. One would be, I would say, I'm going to use this loosely. So flexibility, so my thing is not gymnast flexibility, not take your leg and bring it up to your ear. That's what you need if you're a gymnast. That's not what you need for everyday life. So how about just being able to bend over and pick up something that fell on the floor and reach up and put it on your top shelf? So flexibility, mobility, you're going to get with a bar class. Strength. And, Abby was talking about people who come in for the first time who are obviously very strong. I mean, you can see it, you can see their muscle definition, but then they quiver with the 2-pound weights. It is deep down muscle activation, not your surface layer muscles, but those deep intrinsic muscles that you don't get to work in everyday life. You should use them in everyday life, but they don't really turn on unless they're used to it. So bar is going to also give you the ability to tap in deep into your muscles and then just feel good and build a community. Those are my 3 benefits.
That's awesome. Trisha?
I think the increased range of motion is for me the most beneficial. So when I see people come into bar in the beginning, for me, it's not so much about what it's going to change physically. It's, am I able to give them enough mobility and then challenge their muscles at the same time that they can find a deeper range of motion, therefore being more flexible, and also, from a caloric expenditure perspective, they like it because they're now moving in a more dynamic way because they've increased their range of motion. So improved range of motion. I also think one of the reasons people love bar is because we didn't have a lot of muscular endurance offerings in group fitness before bar really hit its stride. And so in the beginning, we had a lot of body pump. And if you think about it right now, people fell in love with body pump like crazy. And even to this day, that craze is not over, and it's muscular endurance. They're lifting weight for 4 or 5 minutes. It's muscular and it's time under tension. And so people who've never done muscular endurance, maybe they lift weights, maybe they do yoga, maybe they do cardio, but they've never done muscular endurance. What happens is the first few times they do bar, their body responds. Their body is like, whoa. And that's partially the workout, but it's also just they haven't really done that component of physical fitness much in their lives. And so that's how that addiction comes in, because your body responds very quickly to bar. I always say, a couple things to that, which is be careful, bar instructors, because people do need more than bar. So when I see things like a 30-day tuck fest, I'm a little like, you know, actually the human body needs to lift heavy stuff. The human body needs to bring its heart rate up, maybe even if it's through lifting heavy stuff. The body needs flexibility training. So I try to encourage people to see that the human body needs to be integrated, so that in 6 months that bar student's like not ditching you because they've plateaued or they've hit that place. So muscular endurance, and then really anybody can come into the room. You know, my mom is 80 years old, and she had never done bar before in her life, and she'd really never done group fitness. That wasn't her way of moving her body. And when COVID hit, she and my stepdad, who would have never gotten into it, started doing my bar classes, and they are religious now about doing the class because it can so easily be modified to any human being. And so here they are, 80, taking the class and feeling like they're working just as hard as everybody else, and they've improved. And so it's been a really fun experience just to watch it be a very inclusive format from that perspective.
That's awesome. Abby?
Well, I was going to say this anyway, but I think Sharon asked the question, what would you say about that bar? Would you say bar strengthens your stabilizing muscles? And that would be one. I mean, that would be my number one is yes. It's that I love that because you are using your body weight. Most of the time you're using body weight or using 2-3 pounds. So you're better able to get into a better position, better alignment. So that's a big one for me right there, which we know when you're better aligned, especially when you're in neutral, especially neutral in your joints, you're able to focus more on those stabilizers around and really around your core. So we're talking about your pelvis, your spine, and even your shoulders. So a lot of the movements we do, we really focus on stabilizers. We focus on alignment, a huge. So I think your bar movements should make or enhance the way that you do heavier strength training. So it gives you a better ability to go out there and do your strength training and to actually lift heavier because you're strengthening your stabilizers. And then the last one I would mention is postural. And I think all of that comes back. Postural. So I walk around I used to walk around the room pre-COVID. I used to demonstrate a movement, walk around the room and make corrections to make sure that people were aligned and that they were improving their posture. So that when you walk out, you actually feel physically, and I think also spiritually and emotionally, you feel better when you're more aligned and you've got better posture.
I love that. I love that. So we have some people that are not instructors. And so one of the questions that are, what are the pathways to become a bar certified teacher? What is the pathway? Trish, you want to handle that one to start with? I'm going to ask each of you.
Sure. My recommendation is for anybody who's interested in teaching bar, that they first recognize that it's a piece of physical fitness, but it's a format. And you want to get your national accreditation alongside your bar certification. So I know that's not probably a great business model statement for all of us who have bar brands, but the truth is, it really, when you come in to teach bar, you really do need to understand these complex concepts so that you never want to be a bar instructor who fell in love with a format and is just regurgitating what you heard. You want to always know that whatever you're teaching from a place of understanding the science behind it. And so when you get that national certification, it doesn't mean you know everything, but what it does is it teaches you to think critically about how the body works. And so then when you walk into your bar certification, you have this baseline of information that really supports what you're hearing. And I think that makes a huge difference. And then in my opinion, in terms of finding the right bar certification for you, I think it's important to take a ton of bar classes, whether virtually or at an SCW conference. I mean, that's the kind of cool thing about one of the upcoming conferences. You have a virtual event, but we also have in-person events coming back. So when you go to a conference, go in, listen to the philosophy, take the class, and see if it resonates with you, right? You want to make sure that you love it. And then most importantly, that is not the stopping point. I have so many instructors that have, like Abby and I share educations all the time. We're teaching micro educations right now together. So I can't tell you how many people I've sent her way. And I would certainly send people to Stephanie as well. I think the more you learn about barre, the more, you know, the Barre Summit's a great example. Yeah. So anyway, I talked way too much. I'll shut up.
I love it. Stephanie, what about you, kid?
So I would say a little bit of what Trisha said. My thing is just do a bit of research. I'd say don't sign up for the first Barre cert that you see, because there are so many out there. And while we all gave our definitions of what Barre is to us, there's actually a lot of different Barre formats and philosophies and courses. And, you know, some courses are a little bit of in-person and virtual. Some include practice teaching and coaching sessions. Some include free optional post-training materials. So know that there's a lot out there. Do a little bit of research, figure out not just does the technique fit for you, but does the overall structure of the program work for you? And then from there, each brand, each certifier has their own process on how you actually become certified. You know, some you take the course and you're good to go as long as you feel ready to teach. Others, you have to show proof of your practice teaching with you know, participants in the room. So each provider has their own baseline of actually how you can get that certification in writing. You know, so really it's just a matter of doing your homework and finding the brand that works for you.
I love that, Stephanie. What about you, Abby?
I mean, there's almost, after what you guys just said, the two of you, Stephanie and Trisha, there's not much more to say. I mean, you guys, you really did spell it out. I definitely, you know, an advocate for getting that accredited, that large accredited certification, you know, whatever organization that is, it just gives you so much more information about just how the body works, just how the body moves. And we say it all the time, even with cycling. I know people come and just take a cycling certification. I'm like, this is great that you're here, but getting more information and understanding physiology is going to help you be a better cycle instructor. And it's the same thing with barre. Understanding biomechanics better will help you be a better barre instructor. And then in addition to that, like if you've taken one certification, take another. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, yeah, I think I have taken four barre certifications, not to mention, Trisha, you know my story. Like when I first started teaching, there weren't any barre certifications that were out there at this point. There was one, and it was a licensed program. So I went out and bought like that. This is how long ago it was. All of the hard copy Lottie Burke method DVDs. So I learned it that way. So the more information, the better. And then what happens is you can start to shape your barre class based on what's best for the people in your class and based on your style, because there's just so many styles out there now that I always feel like there's like no wrong way to teach this.
I love that. I love that. And I love about the education. The thing about everybody on the panel and you guys that are adding the comments, you know, education is the key with anything. And with COVID happening, there were so many virtual things that you were allowed to take to further your knowledge with what you like to dabble in fact. And I think that as teachers, we really stepped up and we took different certifications and programs. Speaking of kind of virtual and all that good stuff, how can I incorporate barre classes into my virtual offerings? And that's a great question, because we're never going back, guys. We will always have live classes, but we will always have virtual classes as well. From now on, they will always be together. And if you haven't jumped on the virtual bandwagon, you need to really think about it. It's never going away. And it's something that's interesting at our clubs, our bigger clubs. We had always talked about it being an added benefit to the membership, that we were going to have videoed classes that they could go online if they went on vacation. But we never got around to it. Now we were forced to. So I know a lot of us on this panel have gone virtual during this. Trisha started Home Room, which is for teachers to actually have a vehicle to teach from home. I know Abby does a lot. I know I've done a lot. And I believe that you've done your certifications that way as well, correct, Stephanie? I mean, through all this?
Yes. So even before COVID came, we did have an online virtual component. It just helps reach more people at the same time. So for instructors out there, I mean, I'm talking about it in terms of me reaching other instructors, but you're an instructor, it's the same thing. You can reach more people when you can go virtual. So I think for a lot of people, when COVID hit, it was really scary, and a lot of people didn't want to go virtual because technology is scary. But for those that jumped on board, I believe it was a blessing in disguise, just to see how many people you could touch. One thing I would say about going virtual, for those who maybe haven't done it yet, there's there's something about the Zoom and the webinars like we're doing right now, and then there's these on-demand pre-recorded virtual platforms. The on-demand pre-recorded virtual platforms, they're great, but they take a lot of work and a little bit of infrastructure. So for those who are just kind of starting with the virtual path, I would say I wouldn't plan to go on demand first. I would start with a little bit of Zoom, kind of testing it out, working through your technology and your cameras and your sound and equipment, get that going and get a base going before you think about an on-demand type platform.
Perfect. And Trish, want to piggyback?
Yeah, I think it's never too late to get involved in the virtual world now. But I think one thing to consider, if you're hesitant, or if you've been hesitant this far, I think it's good timing to look at your local health clubs and your studios and find out what they're doing in this way. Maybe you don't want to launch your own virtual platform. Abby and I can both tell you it's super easy. No, it's not easy at all. But maybe you want to be involved in this virtual world, but maybe you want to support and connect with the local gym. Maybe they're going to bring you customers. Maybe there's a way you can work with somebody who's already in your area doing it. The other thing I'd say is that if you're going to go virtual, the first thing you have to do is learn to teach to camera. Teaching to camera is very, very different than teaching in person. And then the hybrid model, which so many of us are doing now, where you have people in the room and you've got people at home, is really quite challenging. So if you haven't done it before, you have to consider the technology. You have to consider the marketing strategy of how you're going to get people in the room. And then you also have to really think about your skill set. Does your personality come through on camera? Are you able to make a connection that will bring them back? Can you queue on those days when 20 people show up with black boxes? We've all taught throughout COVID, and this happens. So you have to think about if it's for you, make sure you have the skill set. And then, there's no stopping you. I think right now, the number one takeaway, I was actually talking with the New York Times today and yesterday about this very topic, which is gyms went from being one very specific business model. Now gyms and boutique studios and yoga studios and the like have customers that got used to working with them at home. They have customers that want to come back. And now they have customers who are back to life. We have 4 practices and we've got a job and our kids are at home still behind you in Zoom class playing the recorder. Our lives are much more complicated now because we are starting to leave our homes. So you may need to offer VOD for that person who needs to be able to access you at home on their own schedule. You definitely need to keep up the two-way because people want that connection. People want to see your face and see your response to them. They want to, even if all they do is drop you a chat, they want to see that they matter. You matter to them and they matter to you. And then of course, getting back to in person at the same time is the next level of service offering. But if you don't meet your customer at all the different places they're at right now, they're going to find other ways to get their fitness. So you just have to really think through what your customer needs are.
I love that, Trisha. Now, Abby, because so many times when we're doing virtual, an obvious question, and it's kind of a question we've even been asked about gyms, they don't have bars. They don't have a ballet bar. They don't have that prop. So how are you teaching this, Abby, when somebody's at home and they don't have that? Or if a gym doesn't offer or they have ballet bars, what are alternatives that you use or you suggest?
Well, and I love that you said that because that was going to be like my next statement, that if you want to teach virtually a format, Barre is actually one of the best formats to teach virtually because you really don't need any equipment. I mean, you can substitute so many pieces of equipment. For dumbbells, you can use water bottles. For the loop bands that we use, which are always optional, you could tight, I say tight pantyhose, but who wears pantyhose? You could tie socks together, whatever you have to, and make yourself a band. I mean, there's so many, the discs that we use, paper plates. So with regards to the bar, well, first, you don't actually need a bar. That's one. But if you do want to use a bar, of course, there are lots of options. We talk, about a booty kicker. Of course, that's one that you can purchase, but you can also use a chair just as a prop. I mean, it doesn't have to be, it can be a chair that moves. You can also, it doesn't have to be a chair that's, that you're worried is going to tip over, just something to put, to help you balance. I mean, sometimes I use my countertop because my countertop, believe it or not, in my kitchen is the perfect height. It's the perfect height for my bar. So equipment is completely optional, and being at home to do your bar class is really, if you can't be in the club, it's really one of the ideal formats.
I love that. Somebody asked, Sharon has asked, I have signed up for 4 certification courses with the American Bar Technique. Why are the number of repetitions and sets so structured in bar? Why are the repetitions and sets so structured in bar? Who'd like to take that? Raise your hand. One of you. Go ahead.
I will say for me, it's not. It's actually not structured. Maybe it should be more structured, but in the beginning, when people would ask, how many reps do you do? I would say, I don't know. You don't, no. Well, how long do you do it for? Well, I don't know. For me, I just feel it. And I think that's something that comes with time. So that's not a good answer. So I had to start redefining that answer. But a lot of it should be, it's easier when you have clients actually physically present with you, but you should do a little bit of scanning the room, seeing, okay, this isn't landing well with people, or they're getting a little bit more, they're taking more breaks than I want them to. It's time to stop and move on. Or I was expecting a few more people to break by now and they haven't, let's do 8 more. So in my opinion, it shouldn't actually be very structured. You should have a guideline in place, whether it be repetitions or 8 counts, to help you learn how to get your groove. But for me, it's actually not structured in terms of repetitions.
Perfect. Anybody else, Trish?
So, in our program, the way that we sort of approach reps and sets per se, because it's muscular endurance, is we build in through different ranges of motion. So we start with full range of motion. We extend and bend to the full flexion, full extension. Then we shorten it to half range, and then we move into pulses. A static hold is always like an amazing little sneak attack. And then of course, Lottie was really famous for what we call a shift. So it's kind of like if your arm is here, wait, I'll do this. A shift is like a tiny little shift. It can be done in the body in any joint. So we keep the reps 20 or below, because the research from NASM and AFA and ACE is that really if you go above 20 reps in any one range of motion, now there's no police, it's not like at 24, something goes on. But as a general rule of thumb, the value of going above 20 reps decreases, and the incidence of potential injury increases. So it's like, for me, it's like finding that sweet spot where I know I'm pushing them to their edge muscularly. And we know that the research says that you can develop muscle in a muscular endurance class by pushing to fatigue. So it's sort of that, for me, it's that fine line, and making sure that when we find that fine line, that they're not feeling it in their joints, they're utilizing their muscles. So we always say muscles move, joints feel. And we don't want people going, oh my gosh, she killed my shoulders today. If they're doing this, that means you probably killed their shoulder girdle. So it's a matter of finding this like really funny balance, but you can work in different ranges of motion as opposed to just doing 20 of one thing and stopping. So that's how you get to muscular endurance, is you're working in these different actions in the same series and sort of building it up until you hit that fatigue point, and that's when you build the muscle.
Great answer. Great answer. Abby, they're asking, what height of chair do you recommend? How high should a chair be?
I know. So I answered the question to whoever asked it. I answered directly to that person. So your bar, and this is everyone, I know we all have different, we all might be like on a different page about this, so I'm totally fine if everybody disagrees with me. Your chair at home might not be the ideal height. Let's just say that. I sometimes use my bar stool, and I know the seat part is too low and the chair back is too high, but I still do it. It still works. I like a bar that's a little bit lower than a regular ballet bar because you're doing more conditioning. So I personally, ready for this, it's going to be very specific, 38.5 to 39 inches from the ground. You're like, that's very specific. So it's just slightly lower. I don't love 40 inches. It's not my favorite. It will work. 40 inches is great. I've done it. I've done a class. But typically when I've got a bar that's 40 inches, I also have one that's lower. So I'll have two bars. I have one that's a little higher, one that's a little lower. So if I have my choice, I kind of want something in between.
Good.
A little much?
Mine's 37. I like 37.
So there you see. Okay, there you go.
I have it.
I was just gonna say that's right in the wheelhouse. One thing I would suggest for anybody listening, Fred and Liz Halfpap out in New York are sort of the mother and godfather of bar these days. He was the first male bar instructor, and she was one of the very first Lottie Burke method instructors in the United States. If you go to their studios, you walk in and you warm up center floor, so fabulous. And most of the people in the room are chatting and laughing and giggling, but packed room. And what they say, as soon as the warm up's over, they say, smalls over there, talls over there, and everyone else on the other bars. And what they've done is, and they're not expensive bars. These are like, just dowels attached.
Home Depot.
Yeah. And it's such a nice treat to be able to, and it always works out. There's enough average size people to go to the average size 37 or 36 size bar. And there's always a few short people who are like, hot dog. So to me, that's such a nice service if you haven't put the bars in. Technically, this is like old, 30-year-old technical conversation, which is always think through, it is based on ballet postural alignment. And in ballet, you would never have your wrists stand up. I think I have sweatpants on, so be careful here. In ballet, you would never have your wrists above your elbows, right? You don't hold your arm with your wrist above your elbows. You always have a slight decline from shoulder to elbow to wrist. And so when it was originally put together, the idea was that the wrists were slightly below the elbows as you face the bar.
That's awesome.
I
asked about. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, I love what you said, Trisha, because I've taken those classes. I would go take the classes at the XL studios, and they were all at the XL spas when they had the studios, and they had the bars all around the room. And there were one that was lower, one that was higher, and then one that was in the middle. And it was just, for somebody, I'm in the middle, and I'm like, this is great for me. And somebody who's tiny, because I saw somebody over there who's like 5 feet. She's like certain bars are too high. And that makes sense because you're tiny, you're 5 feet tall. So you're like, I know, I love it.
Somebody had asked questions about music, and is music, I think it's a lot of personal preference. Stephanie, do you guys use music with your program or?
Yes, we use music. So for us, we say that music is the backbone of your class for us. So our format is our blueprint. The music is the backbone. It's not in the background. It's plays an important role because for our technique, and again, lots of different techniques. They all have their positives. There's not one better than the other, but for us, it's a little bit more of a higher energy type feel to it. And you can't have that higher energy without the music. Now, we are not structured on choreographing to the 8 count. All the other techniques are. We're more so just find the beat of the music and move to it and pick music that is upbeat. But music is so personal. My favorite songs are not everyone's favorite songs. So it's good to have a mix. But yeah, I'm a big music person.
What BPM do you like, Stephanie?
My perfect BPM is 128 for bar. But Spotify, it's a little bit hard to find that. So I'm anywhere between like 122 sometimes to 128.
Ladies, anybody else? Trish?
I use the same BPM almost all the time, although today I used 120 just because I was changing this series. In fact, I was using Abby's plie series from a couple weeks ago that I learned, which I love. And in terms of music, I think, there's 2 ways to teach. There's you can put the music kind of in the background. There's a lot of really popular programs that have music that's playing, but it's not necessarily the instructors aren't taught to move to tempo even, or you know, or they're just finding that rhythm and moving to the rhythm, not necessarily moving chorus, you know, choreographed music mapping. It's all personal preference. And I think the idea of how you can differentiate your bar class versus somebody else is definitely how you utilize music. And there's no wrong way to do it. Really, there isn't. And I have to say, so many of us that are on the call today maybe have been teaching, you know, I started teaching in 1991. That's insanity, right? So
Jeff and I are like, what? That was after us.
But I was taught, I learned to move my body only to the beat of the music because that was the way it was. So I always music map everything, but that doesn't make it right. And I will say this, generations younger than us, sorry for anybody who is with me in the 20, 30 year category, many of the generations below us, including millennials, including the generation below, did not learn to do fitness in the gymnasium with a ghetto blaster step touching. They went to HIIT workouts. This wasn't their mode of learning. Not all, this is not a, you know, but for the most part, it doesn't throw them off to go into a class and not have people on the beat. It makes some of us kind of insane, but it's you know, in complete honesty, there's a lot of really popular bar programs that have packed studios that music is in the background. And then the last thing I'd say is just be mindful of who you're teaching. You know, it's like my classes are such a wide variety of age groups. So I always think about mainly, what did they listen to 10 and 20 years ago that will motivate them now? So what did my mom listen to 20 years ago when she was 60? What did my 30-year-old listen to when they were 10? Like, I just try to plug and play songs from everywhere so that I always touch on somebody. Somebody in the room is always feeling that song, and maybe they don't feel the next one, but they'll feel the next one. So it's just, I like to kind of throw the balls in the air and say, let's listen to a little bit of everything, as long as it's 128.
I love that. We have basically 3 minutes left. Abby, I'm going to ask you a question that I think you can answer probably very well. Can bar choreography be modified for clients who have special physical needs?
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, definitely there's certain things that we do in bar that might be challenging for some people to do, but there's always ways to modify. In fact, Trisha and I just did a workshop, like a 4-part series, and this was a big piece of it, that we just have to be very, let's say, considerate of who's coming in our class. People want to partake in it. And so how do we modify the movements? And knowing that, like coming into the class, like I always have like just certain movements that might be a little bit challenging for some people. In my head, I always, like in the back of my head, I have modifications always set up. I'm like, how do I get that? And then when I offer modifications, I want to make sure that I offer them in a really positive way. Not like, if you can't do this, then here's the consolation prize. Nothing like that. Like in fact, when I teach, I try to start with something that's a little bit less challenging and gradually increase the challenge and give people options and give them the opportunity to choose the more challenging option, or make them also feel good about not choosing the more challenging option. Maybe they want to stay at what their level is. So doing it in a way, offering modifications and offering options for everybody in the class, no matter what their level is.
So we've got one last question before we end. First of all, I want all of you to put in your certificate, the links to your certs, so that people can find you guys. Somebody asked, what is the best bar certification to get? Janice, you've opened up a kettle of fish. I don't even know if there's an answer for that. Trisha, you got, I mean, quick, because I got one last question.
Each of us teaches a bar certification. So to find our bar certifications, Stephanie, yours is, you put it in there, right? Is it barintensity.com. To find Abby's, you can go to www.scwfit.com, and to find our certification, it's www.barabove.com. So those are the three, of course, we would recommend, but I would recommend all of their education. So whether you start with me and you move to Stephanie, or you start with Abby, like, to me, more is more. and to just take more education, go to conferences, get your CECs. There's an SCW coming up right around the corner. So,
Right.
so get your buns in there and take some classes and see what resonates with you.
And, you know, I'll just add to that, not just take other types of bar fitness formats or certifications, which it is fantastic, but just take other formats in general. You know, when we talk about continuing education and learning and growing, I've learned things from a yoga hybrid, and you know, I'm not yoga, but there's like, ooh, I like that move, or I like the way she cued that, and you incorporate it into bar. Or if you do a spin certification, which I haven't, but I've listened in on some, but you know, it's very big on music and using your music, and it's like, ooh, I could use that tip to take it into my bar class. So I've learned from so many places I didn't think I would learn. I mean, I could take that and put it into my bar class.
I love that. I think that's great. Go ahead, Trish.
I was just going to say one more thing that I think all three of us do often is we constantly, my social media platform is, my muse is all of you instructors and trainers, those of you who are in the business. My muse isn't, I'm not a consumer. That's not my, I'm not going after the consumer market. I'm going after the instructor market. So my entire job is to provide ideas, choreography, content that you can modify and adapt. So, and all three of these ladies do it. So if you want to follow any of us in social media, I guarantee you that you're going to find great content ideas there and be able to talk about conversations along these lines.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that's a great way to end it. I want to thank you all for attending my beautiful panel. I feel honored to be with you. Don't forget, we're doing this again Tuesday night, 6:30. I don't know what the topic is. We'll be here. Not these people, I don't think. Maybe they are. I love you guys. Social media, look for us all. Thank you guys for spending the night with us.